Hello! We decided to build a bigger compost heap this year, and we're going to use these old wood pieces and repurpose them as posts. So, let's start. We've been wanting to build big and sturdy compost space for the longest time. Over the years, composting has become a great interest and also a huge need for us. Making use of all kinds of materials in and around our land and trying to give back the soil more than we're taking from it is a fascinating attempt, to say the least. After a lot of research and planning, today we're going to take the first step. Building the whole thing will take a while, but we are starting the preparations. As I mentioned in the beginning, we're going to build the structure mostly with recycled materials. These pieces of lumber were a part of a platform that we had built a while ago, but we disassembled the whole thing since it was no longer needed. We already used some of the smaller pieces for different purposes, but these planks here were just too large to use. So they have been laying around here for the longest time, and it was making me uncomfortable. I don't like seeing things sitting idly without serving some kind of purpose. We all know that recycling and upcycling items is a good thing to do. But when you actually see a material in front of you and you get to give that a different meaning, it becomes something so satisfying. So now that it has been long enough and we have a plan in mind, we decided to try and see if we can cut them vertically and make posts. We're going to use a chainsaw to cut them, which is not ideal, but it is too much of a hassle to load them and take them to the sawmill, so it will be worth giving a try. This is definitely going easier than Umur expected. I didn't have much of a clue how the whole thing would look like, but assumed it was doable. He thought cutting the pieces vertically would take a bit long and controlling the chainsaw would prove difficult. It is actually a bit funny because he has always been much more open and ready to try different things and assumed they would just work out. When we first moved to the countryside, we were quite inexperienced. So during the adaptation process, we had many harsh and challenging encounters. His boldness and idealism sometimes meant learning things the hard way. Now, being more cautious allows him to better estimate the situation and be prepared. Well, as you can see, it's not perfectly smooth, but it serves the purpose. I, on the other hand, have always been more cautious, anxious even. I usually saw the possible difficulties and negative outcomes, expecting things to be hard and challenging. The same adaptation process made me calmer and more confident, since I had to relearn so many different things and shed some of my old habits. As I got more experienced, I started developing my abilities, especially physically, and finding solutions to problems. I would say this made me feel more capable and have a slightly more positive outlook. Usually once you take the first step, everything else feels manageable. Of course, our tendencies are still there. Sometimes they make us stronger, sometimes they get us in trouble, but in any case, it is nice to see that time and experience really smooth the rough edges. So this is the place where we're going to build the structure. But first, let's talk a bit about why composting is a priority for us. One of the most important things we realized in our gardening adventure is that in order to have healthy and productive plants, we have to nurture the soil. What that means is that you need to give back what you're taking. When we first acquired this piece of land, the soil was exhausted from previous farming and grazing activities. It was almost fully covered with wild blackberry bushes. Blackberries actually serve the purpose of rehabilitation for the soil, and there is simply too much to talk about right now, and I want to make another video about the whole matter. We have a bit of a love-hate relationship with them. Well, hate is a strong word, but they do challenge us really. For now, let's continue talking about composting. After years of taking and taking from the soil and not giving anything back, you cannot expect a healthy soil life. So we have always been keen on finding ways to create a healthy topsoil by keeping the ground covered, adding more manure, compost, wood chips, you name it. What we're trying to do is nurture the soil to our best ability, instead of trying to find band-aid solutions to smaller issues we encounter. That is why we have been experimenting with many different kinds of organic and accessible fertilizers. Composting allows you to literally give back the soil what you took. Since we harvest kilograms of vegetables and take away certain minerals, composting the plant itself at the end of the season and mixing that with the soil next year allows us to give back some of those nutrients and minerals. It is also a richer source since we're able to collect all kinds of materials around us. And it is better in terms of carbon footprint as well, because we produce that on our own land. But in order to have a significant amount of compost each season, we needed bigger and more controlled piles. This heap right here is the one that we built last year. This old one is covered with tarp, but the cover and the wire netting around ended up letting in more air than needed, so it could not retain enough humidity. It also did not allow us to turn the pile as we wished. The material inside is half decomposed, so this will serve more like a wood chips. We have been researching different methods and styles of composting. Honestly, at first, the whole thing was a bit intimidating, since the scale ranges from just piling random stuff together and leaving it be to rocket science. But in the end, we decided that simple cold composting would be the best option for us right now, and we wanted to build a rather simple structure that is still sturdy, manageable, and easy to use. We will need a small excavator to smooth out the ground before we build the structure. It will also straighten some of the bumpy and rough roads near the farm. So right now, we're clearing the area to make space for the machine. Our land is stony. We've been here for more than 5 years now, and we're still cleaning out stones. If you have rocky land, do not cultivate the soil and dig deep. Chances are you will be left with even more stones, and larger ones at that. No-dig method is beneficial for a number of reasons, but having your topsoil covered with large or small stones is nothing pleasant. They get in the way all the time. The physical side of it is not even the main issue here. It becomes a mental load, as you can see that I have said the word stone 56 times in this last minute. In the end, as someone who has experienced both the urban and the rural ways of living, I guess I can say that you will encounter difficulties wherever you are and whatever you do.
Always carrying stones.
We need to pick the challenge that is more exciting and fulfilling for us, and design our lives according to that. Obstacles, issues, and uncertainties will always be there. But if we are sure of our choices, we can persist and usually find solutions along the way, even if we can't see what that would look like right now. And just before we left, these tiny cherry tomatoes caught my eye. It will be the best part of our breakfast tomorrow. So this is it for today. Don't forget to subscribe to see how the rest will shape up.